Hello, everyone. This has been a long time coming, and I'm sure you're very confused. And to be honest, I myself am confused. You see, I'm turning 25 this summer, in fact, this very month, and I was supposed to do this on my channel anniversary, but life got in the way, and we'll talk about that later. So, first things first, my podcast. Kind of gave up on that because for some reason the podcast thing won't let me sign in no matter what I do, so I gave up on that. And then TikTok doesn't believe that I'm 25 and it thinks I'm 16 or 17, so it only lets me be on TikTok for an hour, which I think is actually kind of a blessing because, um, you know, I have ADHD, so I think it's better leaving it that way because, you know, if it wasn't for that, I would spend hours on TikTok. And yes, I do have a big old zit out there that's not ready. And I have a big one I just picked out a little while ago on my forehead that my hair is doing the honors of covering. But I know what you're here for. You're not here for my sob story. You're here for my explanation. So let's get it over with. First things first. Gabrielle Foster. I'm talking to you. I am Shoto Todoroki. Like, not the anime character, obviously. I'm the person behind that account. And I'm sorry that I gaslit you all those years, but to be honest, I myself am mentally disabled, so, I was kind of going through something right then, and I wanted an escape, and one of my favorite forms of escapism was pretending to be someone else, or role-playing, rather. And I got caught up in a bunch of people I wasn't even supposed to be associating with, and my parents told me not to associate with them, and I didn't listen, because I wanted to be like, I won't do what you tell me, and, I can't edit, so I'm doing my own sound effects, so if you hear me making weird noises, that's because I'm Michael Winslow, basically, but not really, I'm a white girl. I'm obviously not the real Michael Winslow, but, I'm trying to kind of be like him, sort of. In fact, I've always been that way. I've always liked making weird noises and doing weird things, but as you might have guessed, a lot of my earlier videos started with Sasha and them. And that was because I made a bargain with my mother, who was still in control of me at that time. And she still kind of is to this day, but we'll get into that another time. But anyway, she told me that I could not show my face in any videos, so I asked her if it was alright if I filmed my toys. And of course she said yes, and my very first video was Sasha Freaks Out, where, Sasha freaks out, but she freaks out over the loss of her puppy, and I think she accuses me, who is the director, of sitting on her, which is possible because I've sat on small toys before. And then, as I've mentioned before, I lost all of my toys pretty much in the great move of 2020. And, you might be wondering what that is. It's just a mural. Mural? I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but it's one of them things up there. This is a castle, yes. There are tapestries now. See what I mean? But, in all seriousness, the reason I'm making this video is to half apologize, half explain. And speaking of explanations, let's move on to my racist apology. I don't think that really means anything, because A, I don't even know what I was apologizing for, and B, if I didn't know what I was apologizing for, why was I apologizing? If I don't know what I said, I'm not apologizing. Sorry. Sorry for not knowing what I said, and if it was racist, I'm sorry for that too, but unless you can prove to me what I said, bye, But I mentioned that it was my mom who said something, and I was like, the hell are you talking about? But I apologized either way, because I wasn't even sure what I said. We were watching my videos in the background, and she said, that sounds racist. And I was like, what the hell did I even say? Because I don't even remember what video that was. And like I said, I sort of take back my apology on that until I find what I actually said. But, speaking of racism, I've been raised for a majority of my life by my grandmother and my grandfather. And as you can tell, they're sort of racist themselves. You see, my grandfather especially, I think they were both they were both raised Northerners, but they still have diet racism. You ever see that College Humor video, or Dropout as they're now called? Bullshit. But I guess the joke is supposed to be they dropped out of college. They're no longer College Humor. They're now dropouts. But whatever. Why couldn't you keep the name? You know, that's the name, and that's in the majority of a lot of your older videos. Why couldn't you just keep College Humor so that no one got confused when they were trying to look for you after not watching you for a couple of years? Like, that would have killed you, but I guess it's also to promote some app they have. And that's about the time I left when they started promoting that app. I was like, you know what? I'm done with this shit. And you might notice that I'm cussing quite a bit. That's because, like I said before, I am 25, believe it or not. And here's another thing that's a concern for me. My constant, body shaming, Yes, I am fat, okay? I can live with that. Can you live with yourself after bullying me? How do you sleep at night? Exactly, now go back to sleep. Alright, are the assholes gone? Good. Oh, this is Mike, by the way. You might not be able to see him under that wig. And don't worry, that wig isn't really involved in anything. Which, speaking of which, I want to show you something I made. Hang on, I'll be right back. So you might recognize this from the olden days. And this is another part of the bargain I made with my mother. I said, if I show my face, but with a mask on, can I show my face? And she said, well, yeah, sure. And so that's why I always wore a mask back in the day. But now I'm thinking of bringing that back, but specifically for a character. You see, back in the day, I think, I bought a mask for the Dark Director, which is a thing I created to basically be my answer for Darkiplier slash, Antisepticeye. And that never really came into live action. I kind of wanted to do a sketch like that, but then, obviously, I never had the budget. I never had the time or anything like that. So it got scrapped and remade into like a Gotcha Life thing. And that's another thing. Animation is for fucking everyone, you dildos! Sorry about that, I had to get that out of my system. But I do believe that anyone of any age can enjoy animation. And if you're one of those people that think that animation is just for kids, come on. Have you seen Fantasia? Like, in the original, there's titties. Like, everyone freaked out because there were titties, but girls have titties. Deal with it. But anyway, what I wanted to talk about with this particular mask is, there's this sketch on TikTok that I don't even have a script for, but I have an idea, you see. I'm thinking this side could be the mother, because the mother turns a blind eye, and this side could be the father, who is always rages. Now, why am I talking about mothers and fathers? Well, buckle up, kiddos. We're diving into some trauma. So, I do have parental issues and authoritative issues. You may have guessed that. But, it's part of my DNA, I guess, because that was one of the many acronyms they threw at me when they diagnosed me with autism. They diagnosed me with ODD, which I think is oppositional, defiant, something or other. But also, it's especially towards male authority, because I hate to say this, and I know I'll get ridiculed, but I'll get ridiculed no matter what I do. I have father issues. I know, big shocker, but listen. My birth father was a deadbeat, and every man who's come into my life pretty much has been a deadbeat. So excuse me for not trusting males. And speaking of trusting males, I did have this one good one, and he was my uncle. But, we never had that kind of relationship, We just had a sort of wholesome relationship. Like, I had a real connection with him. And speaking of connections, oh boy, it still upsets me to this day. Back in about April, my family and I found out that a family friend who was a work friend of my grandma's died, like towards the end of April. Apparently he had cancer, and we never knew. And my grandma was always teasing him because he's back in Florida, or he was. that he should come back up there at some point so they can have a glass of wine together. And she also brought some plastic flamingos, and he always joked with her they'd get blue in the face in the winter. And she even put a blue sock on the flamingos. And I tried knitting something for them, or crocheting, or looming as I call it, but I tried looming like a little scarf for them, but it wasn't big enough. But I eventually made like at least a beak warmer that was blue. But the reason for this whole tirade is because no one else seems to understand why I'm upset about him and why I'm upset about my uncle. My uncle was the closest thing I had to a positive male role model. And, you can say what you want to say, but I really don't give a damn. And that's another thing I want to mention. I'm part of the Alphabet Mafia, and that is something else I cannot change. In fact, where's my progress flag? I know it doesn't have the intersex thing on it, but it's the best I could do. And speaking of the best I can do, I just got new nail polish. My grandma bought it for me. Well, I don't know if she bought it. She found some. That's all I know. And it was like kids' nail polish. And I told her before that I wasn't really good at nail polish and probably wouldn't get any better. And that my mom said that I shouldn't get fancy stuff until I get better at it. And I kind of agree with her, because I make a hell of a mess with the non-fancy stuff. Could you imagine me with actual fancy stuff? But she did buy me some fancier stuff that she said I wasn't allowed to use, but guess what? I used it, and I don't give a damn. Man, I thought this was gonna take a lot longer, but it didn't take as long as I was hoping. Oh yeah, why I'm splitting my channels. Okay, so here we go. I'm splitting my channels into two, and my second one is called Kendra McPherson. And then, of course, I changed my first YouTube channel to Kimmy's Wonderland. And if you read the description, it says something about videos are like my therapy. That's what I want to do. I want to revert to my younger self, because here's another coming out. I'm an age regressor. Specifically, a middle/age fluid. Now, what is age regression, you might ask? Well, it's not that DDLG crap, at least not for me. And if you don't know what DDLG is, you're either too young, or if you're old enough, go ahead and Google it. But anyway, basically it's some sort of sexual thing. That's all I'm gonna tell you. But anyway, the reason I split it to Kimmy's Wonderland is because that's the name of my alter, who is my younger self. Or my inner child, as I also call her. And she only deals with she, her pronouns. So, as for me, the real person, I am they, them. And I'm actually thinking of changing my name from Kendra to Kiahi, because I found out quite a while ago that I'm somehow part Polynesian. But, I think Polynesia includes Hawaii, but I'm not sure. But, I think Kiahi is a really cool name. It means the fire in Hawaiian. It's actually a Hawaiian name. And also, there's a Hawaiian word I learned called kahu, and that means guardian of something sacred. And someone said to use it for your pets, but I think it can be used as a gender-neutral term for parent. So, if and when I become a parent, I will refer to myself as a kahu. And speaking of caretaker, you know that song Lover by Taylor Swift? You know I'm a fan of Taylor by now, you should anyway. But, basically, I'm writing a, excuse me, I'm writing a parody of Lover, only it's about Pokemon, and it's called Buddy, and it's about my Charizard, who I bought a stuffed animal of. And speaking of videos, you might have noticed that some videos have gone missing. No, they have not. They are moving. They have moved to Kendra McPherson. Now, that isn't official. It isn't everything